Welcome to Media in the Mix, the only podcast produced and hosted by the School of Communication at American University. Join us as we create a safe space to explore topics and communication at the intersection of social justice, tech, innovation, and pop culture. Welcome back to Media in the Mix. I'm your host, Grace Ibrahim, and today we're talking with two SOC student-athletes, and I'm super excited. I was an SOC student. I was also an athlete, and I've never gotten to do an athlete episode, so this is our first. So thank you. Deirdre Brown and Aidan Delehanty are joining us today, and we have a lacrosse player and a swimmer, and I used to be a swimmer too, so it just holds a special place in my heart. That's awesome. Okay, I want to give you both the opportunity just to introduce yourself, let us know what you're doing at SOC, what sport you play, and just kind of how this year's going.
Yeah. All right. So my name is Deirdre Brown. I'm from Boston, Massachusetts. I'm a film and media major right now in SOC. I really love graphic design and marketing. And I don't know, the graphic design part has always been an interest to me. So that's what I chose, interested to explore it. I'm a lacrosse player. I'm about 7 weeks into the season right now. We're pretty deep. We're in our 20-hour weeks right now, so it's a lot of intense training, but we're coming up on our last fall ball game, so then we'll hit our 8-hour weeks, which is just more conditioning, but it's been great so far. It's a interesting adjustment, just from going from high school where you really only practice like 2 hours every day, where now I'm lifting, practicing, doing film, having fall ball games, which is a big adjustment, but personally I love it. Awesome. It's awesome. So yeah. It takes
a special person. And Aidan, what about you?
Yeah, my name's Aidan Delehanty. I'm from Rochester, New York. I'm a junior here at American University. I am a double major actually in political science and journalism. So love anything in political journalism and that sort of realm, as well as sports journalism, as obviously I'm an athlete. Awesome. Member of the swimming and diving team. For swimmers out there, I always joke and say I only swim the 50 backstroke because that's all I'm good at. But in reality, I'll swim any backstroke events that my coaches need me to, and sprint freestyle. And we're like in the thick of the season right now. I think we're 4 meets in. Got one tomorrow at Georgetown.
Nice.
That's just how the sport is. You start right at the beginning of the school year, and it doesn't stop really till the end of February.
Yeah. And you both touched on your training schedules, and I don't think people really know kind of what goes into that. Can you kind of just give us just a little taste of what a week looks like?
Yeah, so usually I know myself and I can't really get work done after practice. So my classes are usually 8:10, 9:45, 11:20. And my practices kind of shift around in the middle of the day, but it's usually from the block of like 11:15 to around 3:30. That's like when our practices are. We lift 3 days a week. We practice for 2.5 hours. And then this past weekend, I had 5 games, 2 on Saturday, 3 on Sunday. That was a little bit heavier, but usually around that time we practice and play games for 20 hours a week, which is a lot. It's a lot on the schedule. You're kind of burnt out by the end of the day. Like all I want to do is really take a nap.
Yeah.
And then we also have, at least for me, I have 8 hours of mandatory study hall every week. So after practice, I try to get 2 hours out of the way just to get it done over with, which is helpful. It structures my day, but sometimes it's a little bit annoying.
Yeah.
I luckily don't have those 8 hours anymore. It's only for freshmen, luckily.
Really? Oh, you're right.
Yeah.
It is only for
only for freshmen. Yeah,
Sorry.
so I'm all done with my hours.
To
kind of like piggyback off of Deirdre. So then NCAA allows you to do 20 hours of practice, film, or scheduled meeting times with your coaches a week while you're in season. So whether if you're a fall, spring, or winter sport. And then when you're out of season, which technically Deirdre will be in a week, 2 weeks. Then you go down to 8 hours of mandatory times, but then there's always your voluntary practices and stuff like that, which coaches will hold, which are, depending on the coach, sometimes mandatory. Sometimes they really are voluntary. But yeah, so right now I'm in 20-hour weeks as well. I practice in the mornings 3 days a week from 6:15 to 8. And then every single day from 2:30 to 4:30. And then in there as well, I'll lift in the mornings from 8 to 9. So yeah, I'm at 3 lifts a week, 3 morning swims a week, 5 afternoon practices, and when we don't have a meet on the weekends, then we're also practicing on Saturdays for about 2.5 hours. So it's a long schedule.
And just because I'm not very familiar with lacrosse, and I remember swimming, it was like you'd go to a swim meet, you'd have maybe 4 to 6 races in a day because it was like, different heats, different events, different whatever you may swim.
Yeah.
Is lacrosse the same in terms of like when you go to a game, is it just kind of like basketball style, like one team versus one team for the day, or do you have like tournament style where you guys are, kind of red robining?
Yeah, usually actually all of our volleyball games so far have been like round robin tournament style. So on Saturday we played GW and we played Mount St. Mary's, and then on Sunday we played Maryland, UVA, and Temple, all within like an hour of each other. So we played Maryland at 8 a.m., then we played UVA at 11, and then we played Temple at 1. So it's like you have a game on, game off, game on, game off.
Yeah.
So it is a lot, especially if you're playing like 2 to 3 quarters a game. It's fall ball right now, so everyone's really getting in a lot. But our coaches gave us the day on Monday just to recover. They're like, hey, take a day.
Nice. Yeah.
Do like ice bath, do some yoga, get your body ready for this week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, I meant to say round robin. I said red robin. Thinking of burgers. That's awesome. Yeah, I just wanted to follow up on that because I don't think a lot of people are aware of kind of not just the training, but then what comes after the training. Obviously, we all compete, so it's it's a rigorous schedule. And then to that point, how has it been? And I want to hear from Deirdre in terms of what have you learned in terms of time management and kind of how being an athlete's helped you really shape your life, because I know it's there, right? There's so many things we have to juggle, whether you think you're juggling it well or not. I guarantee it's well because you're juggling it. That's it. You're juggling, So, and then Aidan, I want to hear from you in terms of when you remember back freshman year and now junior year and kind of like where you're at with that. So whoever wants to go first, go ahead.
Yeah. So definitely in high school, I learned that when I was in between sports, I played 3-season sports, there would be like an awkward month period where I didn't have a sport in between each season. And I was like a lost puppy. I didn't know what I was doing. I'd get home from school, I'd go on my phone, I'd watch a show. I wouldn't do any work because my day wasn't structured. So I just was freelancing all the time. But now when I'm here, when I have practice, it's like, okay, I have practice for 2 hours, and then I'm going to take 10 minutes, 20 minutes to recover after. I'm going to take an ice bath. I'm going to get changed. I'm going to go do my work for 2.5 hours. And it's just set every day like that. And it's my day is so structured, but it feels so, it feels less chaotic, even though in like reality, it's crazy because I'm jumping from one thing to another. But I feel less stressed because I know that I have to do this. And if I do that, then my day ultimately is better, and my week is going to be better, and I can enjoy the weekend. So yeah, I think it is actually like really important for myself, honestly, to have that sort of structure, because otherwise, like, I wouldn't know what I would be doing.
Yeah, I call it structured chaos all the time because that's how it feels. Yeah. And Aidan, what about you?
Yeah, I feel like for me, I've definitely learned when am I going to be the most productive, when am I not going to be the most productive. So like I learned very on my freshman year that on Wednesdays, I'm not going to do anything. It's after 2 doubles on Monday and Tuesday, so I'm not going to be able to get anything done on Wednesday. So I haven't had a class on a Wednesday since probably my freshman year. And again, it's figuring out when is the best time for me to get quality in, both in the water as well as for academically, like when am I going to get be the most productive to get work done? Is it going to be after 5 hours of practice in a day? Probably not. Or is it going to be on like Thursday afternoons where like I've had one class, I've had a practice, so I have a little bit of downtime for my next practice and class and stuff like that. So I can probably just like sit down in the library, sit down in cafe, the bridge. I go to the bridge all the time, and just sit there and try to get as much work done as humanly possible. So it's figuring out like when are your peaks in both, again, life for like social times, academically, swim wise. It's like figuring out those like ebbs and flows.
Yeah, and that's kind of the cool thing I think about athletics is you kind of know what to expect year after year. So your sophomore year, I feel like you're kind of going to feel like you got the hang of things, you know. So that's awesome. And then I want to go back to your tie into SOC. So we have film and media arts and we have sports journalism. How do you plan to kind of take your athletic career, take what you've done in athletics and apply it to what comes next?
I feel like for me, leadership is a big thing that I've just learned from all of my sports. And I think just taking initiative and bringing people together, like whether that's a group project, whether that's a company I'm working for in the future, it's just a big deal for me. And learning how to actually communicate, being a communications major, learning how to talk, learning how to be comfortable, and what I'm saying, learning how to be confident, and what I'm saying, I think I take that away from practice every day, like building the confidence to say, hey, maybe we should try this. Like, even though I'm a freshman, I still feel like I'm learning how to do that and talking to like seniors. So I think leadership and being confident in what I'm saying is going to help me greatly in the future.
Awesome.
Yeah, I'm tying like my sport into my major and stuff. So right now, along with taking journalism classes and stuff like that, I'm also a intern actually for the athletic department within the communications office. So I do work writing some preview articles for different sports, or going through photos and just interning kind of stuff. And I also did some writing this summer as well for a professional ultimate frisbee team in the area, the DC Breeze. So same kind of thing where I was doing preview writing, game recaps and stuff like that, and just trying to learn the ins and outs of sports journalism as a whole. This summer I'm going to be probably doing some more stuff in political journalism,
That's awesome.
but just like trying to know the field as much as humanly possible and just get the ins and outs.
And Aidan, I want to kind of follow up with you along the same lines of what Deirdre was just saying. Are there any skills that you've learned as an athlete that you feel, when you're kind of in that journalism mindset, are there any skills that you have taken from the last almost 3 years of athletics and apply it there?
I think the biggest thing is that like probably that time management and like planning out kind of ideas wise. When I sit down and I need to write an article or some assignment or something like that, just like I approach a race, I have to break down what components of there are in the race. There's your dive, there's your underwaters, there's the breakout and that kind of stuff. And just like any article, you got to break it down from what's your lead going to be, what's going to like really grab your audience, what's going to be the meat of the paragraph, do your good old inverted pyramid format, and it's just same thing. Just break everything down into its smallest components, try to get that done to the highest quality level, and then that's how you get your good articles and that.
That's awesome. I have a little bit of a shift of a question. Are there any misconceptions you feel that athletes get?
I think a misconception is that we just got into the school just because of athletics.
Yeah.
And I think that that's extremely false, because in order to be an athlete, obviously, as Aidan's touching on, you're so good at this time management that it actually bodes extremely well for you in the classroom. And just because we're an athlete doesn't mean that we're not getting, we're not getting any special treatment. We're working hard for the things that, like, we're earning those things. Like, we're earning this gear. We earn a spot on the team, but we're also working hard in the classroom so that we can earn those things.
Yeah.
Kind of to piggyback off of that, the swim team, as you probably know, has one of the highest GPAs in the athletic department, if not in the athletic department, in the entire NCAA. My freshman year, I think we were ranked something like 6th in the nation with highest GPA. Only people that were above us were either Stanford, Cal, or Ivy Leagues. So we do pretty good trying to make sure that our academics speak very highly for our team. That's what we're here for, the main part. Then to kind of go off of that, the swim team has no scholarships whatsoever.
Yeah, I was going to say that.
There hasn't been scholarships on the swim team since late 2000s. So it's not like we're actually here for school, right?
Yeah.
Like that's what we're here for. It's just a little extra added bonus that we get to be Division I athletes and get all the little perks and stuff like that goes along with it. I'm here for school.
Something people always joke is you're a student before you're an athlete. Like, we're student athletes, so we're here for school.
Yeah, that's very true. And I was going to say that follow-up is that in my time I was walking around and everyone was saying swimmers are on scholarships, And I was like, actually, we're the only team that doesn't have scholarships.
Yeah, it's kind of like one of those things where it's just like, also like students are like, oh, all of our money, that's where it's going. It's going to the athletes to go on these crazy trips to, like, does the basketball team go play over in Italy? Yes, they do. But I mean, like, trust me, not enough of your tuition is going to be impacting the athletic department in that kind of ways. Our money is coming from March Madness and that kind of stuff. It's not coming out of your pocket.
Yeah.
And to that, actually, a question that just came to my head, and you could lay it all out there, just touch on certain things, but I think back to my time involved in the NCAA and all of that. Are there anything that you think they could change, do better, do differently?
I think something that they are changing, which is amazing, is the NIL stuff, which I think is super cool. I just saw some teams like posting jerseys, and actually at some games they've been posting they've been selling jerseys. I think at the soccer games, not just of soccer players, but of basketball players, field hockey players, lacrosse players, just retired jerseys, which I think is really cool. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, I think another big thing that's changing the NCAA right now is the overarching conference landscapes. We've seen basically the death of the Pac-12, teams moving into the ACC, going from mid-major to Power 5. That's probably the biggest changing platform that's happening across the board. I see some positives in it, and it's going to bring more recognition for the athletes, give them more possible NIL deals, get them more money so they're not actually paying for school, don't have to rely on the scholarships as much as they can actually really pay for it out of their own pocket.
Yeah.
But there's also like everyone talks about the travel time and stuff like that. If you're coming from Stanford's now going to be in the ACC, Stanford's going to have to travel to Georgia Tech or UNC and stuff like that for a Wednesday night soccer game or something like that. And that travel plus the time difference and stuff like that, that's going to be a lot for some student athletes. But they'll probably work the way around it and stuff like that. So I feel like if anything needs to really change, I love the super conferences. I think it's a lot of fun seeing these big teams go against each other, get more recognition for smaller sports. But if we're going to make these super conferences, then we can just make an East Coast and a West Coast version of the ACC or the Big Ten or whatever conferences. I mean, they already have an East Coast and a West Coast version or a Central and East Coast. Just split it up a little bit differently and give the ability for everyone to have access.
When you say super conference, can you just elaborate for everybody listening?
So
there's I know that's a difference.
There's the idea of the Power 5 conferences, the Power 5 conferences being the Big 10, Big 12, Pac-12, SEC, and ACC conferences. These are your big schools, your Dukes, your UNCs, Texas, Oklahoma, all the big basically state schools. And right now, two conferences in specific, the SEC, the Southeast Conference, and the Big Ten currently have the biggest television deals with, I can't remember who, I think that it's basically their own networks at this point, but with ESPN, have these television deals where the schools are making anywhere between $50 to $70 million a year just off of the television rights for their football teams. So these other conferences, the Big 12, the Pac-12, and the ACC, want a little bit of this action that all the money that these other two conferences are getting. So different schools are basically jumping ship from one conference to another conference in order to just make more money and just have the ability to get more access for the student athletes and really just get some more dollars in the pockets of ADs and stuff like that.
Yep. And also at the end of every training year, I guess you could say, conferences is something we attend as our end all be all swim meet that really kind of puts us where I guess we should be at, all year. We train, we go to these swim meets every week, and then at the end of the year we go to conferences and you're competing against a lot more people. There's semifinals, finals. I mean, it's a whole weekend.
And it's the same thing for every sport. I mean, Deirdre's will be in the Patriot League playoff tournament for lacrosse. There's a playoff tournament for basketball, soccer, wrestling. There's a championship meet similar to swimming. Championship meet for track and stuff like that.
March Madness, which we hear about. That's essentially what everyone's equivalent.
If you win your conference, then you can go to March Madness for basketball and stuff like that.
So it's a lot of stakes. But awesome. Thank you for just clarifying that. I feel like sometimes people are like, what are they talking about? And then I do want to just shift to some fun questions for the time we have left. What is maybe what's your favorite memory so far being an athlete? Because I know it's freshman year. It's only been 7 weeks.
Yeah. Honestly, my favorite memory is actually from this past weekend. So Maryland for lacrosse is this just power team. It's like 5 years they won the national championship in a row. They're just known as this huge, amazing team. And just being able to like be on the field and like play with them is so cool, because in the regular season we won't play with them.
That's awesome.
But like as a freshman, like I never thought I would be playing Maryland, and having the opportunity to be on the field was just so beyond me. But
so
it was
cool.
really cool.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, one of the things the swim team does every year, which is always a fun time, is we take a training trip to Puerto Rico. Almost every college swim team will do some sort of training trip, whether it be to California, Hawaii if you're out on the West Coast, or Florida a lot of the times for the East Coast. But luckily we get to go to Puerto Rico, which is a little bit different. And last year we went and did a meet out there against like Cornell, some D3 teams, Loyola,
Awesome.
which is in our conference. And it was just like a fun time outdoors.
Yeah.
Sun was shining. It was a beautiful day. And then like right afterwards, we kind of all just crashed at the beach, which was right next to the hotel. And just I laid out there for hours and stuff like that. And did a little like scuba diving and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Went out into the coral reefs and just.
That's amazing.
It's a lot of fun.
That's awesome. Yeah, mine was in Key West. We went to Key West, Florida. So, not as good as Puerto Rico. I wish I went to Puerto Rico. That's awesome. And those like weekends like that do remain still some of my favorite memories. So that's awesome to hear. Any standout moments in SOC, obviously, because we have to highlight SOC. Is it like a favorite class you're taking? Something that surprised you?
So I'm taking a class called Visual Literacy, which is really cool. It's a block class. We only meet once a week. But like last night, she gave us like 20-30 minutes to just go and take pictures and experiment with taking pictures. And we have like a photo essay that's due. But something that's really cool we're doing in the class is we're building a website basically as a portfolio. And it's mandatory that we go make a resume with the Career Center. But just making the website, like as we do assignments, just adding these assignments to this website that we can use honestly for like the future, which is really cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I think some of my favorite classes that I took with SOC, sports writing and sports journalism, are taught by the play-by-play announcer for the Washington Commanders.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so I mean, it's one of those like adjunct professors that AU has that like is really in the field.
Who's the professor?
I can think of his.
It's okay if you can't remember.
I can't
Just
remember
take
his
it out.
name off
No,
the
you're
top of my
fine.
head.
You're fine. Just curious because I had
starts
no
with B.
idea.
He was an AU alum.
So
went
cool.
here, worked his way up through ESPN, and then got hired there. But like, just basically sat down every week, got to talk sports, what was happening in the media, how does it relate to different aspects of journalism and stuff like that. I got to write an overarching story for the entire year following a beat, which is pretty crazy.
That's awesome. And more so for you because you have a little more experience in college. Is there any, for someone wanting to go into sports journalism, is there any class or professor you highly recommend that you've taken so far? Yeah,
I mean, at least at AU, if you can take sports writing or sports journalism, even if you have just any interest in sports whatsoever, it's not like there's any requirements or anything like that, but it is like a 300 level class, so you got to take it a little bit later on, but those two classes are just really great. If you just want to just talk sports, realize what's their impact in media and even in just popular culture today, and just do a lot of good writing.
Yeah, that's awesome. Any funny memories at AU? And it could be athletics or SOC, since we're talking about both today.
I think a funny memory I've had was we had an alumni game a few weekends ago, and one alumni from the Patriot League winning team in 2003 came, and like no one was taking her seriously, and she rocked the field. It was impressive. Like she was like, I haven't picked up a stick in like a lot of years, and she killed it. Like we were not expecting her to do as good as she did. Yeah, it was fun.
Awesome.
A recent one that comes to mind is celebrating after a big race is a big thing in swimming. And it's a little frowned upon in a dual meet. Like usually you do it after a big championship meet and stuff like that. There's one character on the swim team. I'll leave him nameless, but it's definitely the video is up on the Instagram if you want to go look for it. He won the 1,000. He won by a pretty good margin. I think he was probably 100 yards ahead of the next guy from UMBC. And then he goes out and then he just like cocks a gun back and like shoots our coach. And none of us were expecting this after the race, and we were just like blown away. And it was just like the funniest thing because like we were talking about like celebrations but after big races, but like not really. It's just like a little like dual meet to start
Yeah,
off at the
yeah,
beginning
right,
of the
right,
season.
right.
We weren't really like expecting that.
Yeah.
And it just came out of nowhere, and that was a funny one.
We used to always say on our team, we used to be so jealous of other sports teams that could do like the soccer does the celebration, like other teams that will run down the field, and like they used to be so strict with swimmers. I don't know, NCAA, like at conferences, they'd be like, you can't celebrate when you touch the wall.
I think,
so
I think it definitely things have changed at this
That's
point.
nice.
People are just going to be like,
that's nice.
do whatever
Yeah.
they want right
You
now.
kidding me?
Just take the little wins.
You
Just
work so
like-
hard, and it's
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
I mean, at least for me, I was a sprinter, so it's like 30 seconds of my life, you know? I feel like I deserve to celebrate that. Yeah. But, and then another question, because I know when I picked you two separately to do this podcast, Deirdre was like, oh my God, I know Aidan. So how do you feel like at least when I joined AU, it was really nice because I felt like I had this community right away that I could just kind of lean on. And I was super introverted, so I was like, I don't really want to go off and make friends on my own. So do you guys feel the same? Like, especially for you, Deirdre, coming in as a freshman, was there that comfort there?
Totally. Like everyone on our floor, a lot of the athletes live on the same floor. And we all just like, when we have homework, we all just like study together. We hang out in the lounge. And like we had a group chat before we even came to school, but it's just like a whole group of people that understand the same thing that you're going through. And like when you have a hard day, like they probably also had a hard day too.
Yeah.
And we do AUX together, which has actually been really cool.
And what's that?
It's the class, it's the transitioning class into AU. You basically learn about resources and stuff. But last week we actually had a really like vulnerable conversation, and like I wasn't expecting people to like be so open, but they were, and it was like really cool to know that like people feel comfortable around you to share these things. But the community is so open, and obviously Aidan is a junior and I'm a freshman, but I already know Aidan just because of connections through the swim team.
Yeah, that's really
You can
cool.
say why. You can say why.
Okay, well, so my boyfriend is on the swim team, so that helps a little bit.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
We always joke because they were both on a recruiting trip here the same weekend, but she committed first. So we always say that Campbell followed.
Yeah, we were just
I
talking
hear
about
that
that a
one a
little
lot.
bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. No, it's always good to know people, you know. It's like college is such an intimidating experience sometimes. So to have that community is just, it's good. It's like it's bonus friends, you know, automatically.
Totally.
Yeah, and like same thing. The nicest thing is that at AU, and this is true from almost all colleges across the country, they throw the freshman athletes together all on one floor for the most part. I had field hockey and lacrosse on my floor freshman year. Still super close with a lot of Deirdre's teammates who are juniors as well. Some of my best friends are on the field hockey team. I don't think I've missed a field hockey game in 3 years.
Yeah.
Same thing with lacrosse. I've been to probably every single home game. Yeah, and they're still some of my closest friends
That's
to this
awesome.
day.
Yeah, some of my neighbors freshman year were all lacrosse. So but it wasn't weird to wake up at the same time and walk out of our rooms when it was like still dark out.
Yeah.
Hey guys, you know, everyone's
hey.
like, good morning, you know, versus people who are coming home, times we're waking up, and you know, it was just like such a different life. So to have those people around you kind of going through the same things is really nice.
Which is just awesome.
Yeah.
And we'll all come out to each other's games and stuff like that and support
That's
us for the
awesome.
most
Yeah.
part. Some teams that always at every volleyball game. We love volleyball. It's just a fun sport to watch.
That's awesome.
Again, I haven't missed a field hockey or a lacrosse game in 2 years. So
That's awesome.
yeah.
So Deirdre and Aidan, thank you so much for joining us on Media in the Mix, our first ever SOC Student Athlete episode. I was going to say down in the books. I don't know what's wrong with me today. It's just like my brain is not working. In the books. And thank you so much for being here. We hope to have another athlete-centered episode. If not, we'll have to do something else SOC-centered with athletes. So maybe getting back to you all, but we'll see. Thank you so much, and thank you for listening. If you want to donate to SOC or this podcast, go to giving.american.soc. And I'll see you next time. Thanks for tuning in to Media in the Mix.